Dr. Allan came to the Philippines, but he had his Filipina called into the police station for questioning.
Because?
Well, stay tuned.
Welcome back to another episode of Fly Me to the Philippines, featuring our Expat Diary, episode 3.
The last one, we talked about the 18-year-old version. Would you, could you? And we got a lot of comments about that.
Yes, and our stories from our viewers are now getting really exciting and interesting as we features a lot of stories. So here we go.
So Chrissy, Allan from Georgia, Atlanta, a doctor, 63 at the time he's 65 now, but he was 63 at the time of the story. Dr. Allan was kind enough to write in and share his story with us. And I spoke to him on the phone for an hour, and he shared his story with me, and we're going to share it with you today. So Chrissy, before we begin, what's new here in the house?
Well, there's a lot of things that happened previously. Aside from we were having a lot of guests in the house, our YouTube subscribers. Now it's like a big change because my son is now here with us full-time, and I will be a full-time mommy. And yes, let's see how
we do.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to have your father, your son, and your fiance all in the same house under one roof?
Well, it's more happy.
Is it just a normal thing? In the Philippines, that's a common thing?
Yes, it's a common thing to have a lot of people and family members in the house.
Yeah.
And it's what do you call that? The more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
It's very uncommon in the West. You know, other than on a Sunday, you'd have Dad over maybe, and he would visit. But it's interesting to have multi-generation, where I'm the oldest, but I'm not part of that generation maybe. So CJ turned 5 last month. He's actually quite smart and quite well behaved. We're off to a good start. He's learning how to swim. Quite exciting. We have a pool, and unlike the West, where there'd be pool gates and lifeguards and security, here the pools are just left open. Buyer beware, the child beware. But just in his first 2 days, he's been swimming, and he's been popping up and breathing on his own. And
he got a really good mentor, actually.
Yeah. Well, my kids all swam in college on scholarships, so he's got a tall order here, you know. But I'm letting you handle it, and his grandfather.
Yeah.
And that's been my approach to having him in the house. I've got 3 other adults that can help raise him. And I'm kind of sitting back as much as I can. You know, I don't like to see anything broken. I might jump in heavy-handed, but I think I'm letting the Filipinos raise the Filipino.
I think you will be the next expat that will tell the story about your life in the Philippines.
Write in my life with
you will write in your life
Filipino moved her family in.
Yeah, after this move. But anyway, Rob, today we will have a very interesting story that has something to do with a Filipina here in Mindanao.
Right here in Mindanao. So Dr. Allan from Atlanta, Georgia, wrote in and we spoke to him. And he had been chatting. He thought he was doing everything right. For 6 months, he met, I think, on Filipino Cupid. And he met a 29-year-old Filipina.
Which is an NBSB.
That's it.
No boyfriend since birth.
What is it again?
NBSB, or no boyfriend since birth, for 29 years
29-year-old, right? She was college educated. She claimed to have never had a boyfriend. They chatted for 6 months. Video chat in the morning, video chat at night. He thought he was doing everything right, and he planned a trip to the Philippines. How common, Chrissy, is it for an NBSB? 29 years old.
29 years old, it's not common to have no boyfriend since birth. For me, it's kind of like unbelievable, but who knows?
Yeah.
It might be true. No boyfriend since birth.
Yeah. So he thought she was beautiful. He thought she had great temperament. So he did what we recommend. He planned the trip to the Philippines sooner than later. You know, this long-distance relationship, we recommend you get here 60 days, you know, maybe 90 days. You really shouldn't allow it to go on and on and on. There's a lot of opportunity for other men to disintermediate you, boots on the ground men to meet your girl. And what's she going to do? Is she going to choose the man right there in front of her, or the one she's been talking to for 6 months, who she's never met and she doesn't even know she has chemistry with? So he came, he planned a trip, and he flew to Manila and took a flight to Dipolog, which is... there's another YouTuber that's very well known in Dumaguete, and he put Dipolog City as the #1 expat retirement destination. I think he was only there for a day, but I've never heard of anybody else recommend it, and I've asked a lot of people about it since because I've been kind of curious. Okay. And it does have ferries from Dumaguete directly to Dipolog.
So this story of Allan, the doctor.
Yes.
When did it happen?
So he came right after the COVID restrictions were lifted. So they were talking for 6 months at the tail end of COVID. And he came and he flew to Manila and quickly changed planes to Dipolog. And the girl, we're going to call her name Maria, okay? Maria. And she met him at the airport with her grandmother, her 2 younger brothers, and another brother about 25 years old. So 3 brothers and the grandmother met him at the airport. It wasn't a real shock to him. He kind of expected it. And they lived 30 minutes outside of Dipolog in a small town, just 2 hotels in town. So they had talked about this in advance, and he had sent a little money ahead so that she could rent an apartment. And she actually rented a townhouse. She rented a duplex, but it was kind of rough. And it didn't really have fully furnished. It didn't have a refrigerator. It didn't have sheets. It was sort of an unfurnished duplex without a refrigerator. So the family met him at the airport, and he went ahead and met the family, and he treated the family to a 50-pound sack of rice, and had a little party, and kind of got the blessing of the family. And then the family all left him with the 29-year-old in the townhouse. The duplex, but they also left the 3 brothers.
3 brothers.
Yeah. So he didn't, and they didn't talk about this in advance, whether he was going to spend the night in the same bed, whether they'd be chaperoned. So they did spend the night in the same bed. However, the 2 younger brothers who were still in high school, they were in the living room, and their routine was they would raid, and he bought a refrigerator. Yeah. So he bought her a cell phone right away, and he bought her a refrigerator, and he bought sheets, and he bought some kitchen accessories. They kind of set up the duplex. Yeah. And the first night, then it's time to go to bed. The younger brothers kind of raided the refrigerator and crashed, fell asleep playing video games in the living room. They were still in high school. But the 25-year-old brother fell asleep at the side of the bed right by the 29-year-old sister. And there was no hanky-panky, no heavy petting. And he said, but she would cuddle with him when they would watch TV, and she was affectionate. And they didn't really have the talk, are we going to be chaperoned 24 hours a day? Are we going to always have supervision? Are we ever going to get intimate? Yeah. He felt like since she'd never had a boyfriend and he'd met the family, and they blessed them staying together in the duplex, he would kind of go with the flow and be respectful.
So that's her reason to have the 3 brothers around her, because she is an NBSB or something.
Yeah, or maybe it was the grandmother, or maybe the parents. The parents in the picture were a little loose. He referred more to the grandmother and the aunts.
Could be.
Yeah. So that's how they set him up, and the family gave the blessing for her to stay with him, but the brother slept just inches away at the side of the bed.
Inches away.
Inches away.
Not in separate bed. Not on the floor.
Right on the floor. No, on the floor. Right on. But in the Philippines, a lot of times the beds are.
So where is Allan
low.
Sleeping?
He's sleeping next to her.
Oh, so it's like the girl is in between them. The brother, him.
Yeah, the 29-year-old. Okay. But the brother's on the floor. But the bed's only a few inches off the floor. The foam. These thin foam mattresses you get here in the Philippines, and he's kind of going with the flow. And for 3 or 4 days, he's sort of settling into what's a 30-day visit. It's a 30-day visit from Georgia, and he's here to start a new life and see what's going on with Maria. And, the brothers, the younger brothers, they're in school. So they're kind of coming and going. They come, they eat everything in the refrigerator possible, pass out, Sometimes they don't even sleep in the house, but most of the times they're there. And then the 25-year-old brother never leaves the sister's side. He says he rented a motorcycle also. So he rented a scooter for 30 days. I think they rented it for him. He provided the money. Yeah.
Okay.
They rented the scooter. He paid for it. But he was driving the scooter. And he said he never took a scooter ride where the 25-year-old brother was not on the scooter. Never went in. Always, like a shadow.
Like a guard.
Like a guard, but very pleasant. He's not stern or anything
So
like that.
he didn't sense anything bad or something
he just
fishy
figured,
about him?
No, he just thought this is the way it's done in the Philippines. And but he said that he started to feel a little off about his relationship with the girl. He felt there was something just different.
You're not connected somehow.
The connection was, like a little static on the line. And he couldn't put his finger on it. He didn't know what it was, but he sensed there was just a little distance developing in the relationship, and it felt odd at times. But he was a sort of a get-along kind of guy. He didn't confront. He didn't try and talk it out. He didn't, raise it as a problem, and he went with the flow.
And thinking it might be part of their adjustment of being together.
Yeah, just to give it time. So, he's doing what he can to make everyone happy. No, they didn't ask him for any money. They didn't say, buy me gifts. He did buy the phone, but they wanted things for the apartment. They were really interested in getting things for the apartment, making it comfortable in the apartment. More kitchen appliances and more kitchen utensils and a new frying pan and more sheets, more pillows. They were outfitting the apartment. He was spending money on that, but nobody asked him for money, and he never felt like he was being scammed.
And there's no hint or a sign of a red flag from the woman that she's scamming him.
Not at all. So he's, is settling in, and he knows they love karaoke like all Filipinos, and he agrees to rent a karaoke machine. And here in the Philippines, it's common. It's kind of like old school, because nowadays we just do it on the internet, on YouTube.
Yes.
But you can rent these machines for relatively little money. Yeah. Usually for parties, they'll bring in a box with the TV built in. It's kind of large.
And you're gonna put coin there?
No, you rent them, and you don't need the coins.
It will comes with a coin.
Oh, it comes with
it's open.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they brought in this karaoke system, and everybody had a karaoke party. And but he noticed that on top of the karaoke machine, there was this little plastic container, and it was like an ice cream container, like a plastic, maybe a pint of ice cream.
Yeah, Filipinos don't throw it away.
Yeah,
they keep it.
Yeah, it's like that's a valuable thing, that plastic. After you eat the ice cream, like no Filipino is going to throw that away.
No.
So it was just sitting on top of the karaoke machine, like somebody had finished the ice cream and just washed it out and left it there. He never looked at it. He never thought anything of it at the time, and that'll come in later in the story.
Oh, what's inside the ice cream container?
Yeah, well, he never even thought twice about it, but he remembered that he had seen it, right? And he just thought, they're just saving the container. Okay. So the very next day, they get a phone call, and they're talking in Visay, and he has no idea what's going on. And they tell him that there's a friend or a relative who's died, and they have to go pay their respects. It's just mandatory. It's like an hour away. And they're going to leave him at the duplex, and they want to take his motorcycle, and everybody's going to go but him. And he thought that was kind of rude. What do you think?
Yeah, it's rude because you already live together partially, right? And then if there's something that will come up, the right thing to do is the woman or the family should bring you with them.
Yeah.
So they did not bring him to the event.
So they came up with the plan. They said, we're going to borrow your motorcycle. We're going to leave you in the condo. Just stay here. We'll be back tomorrow at late afternoon.
Oh, so there was
it's
a
like 24 hours. 24 hours. They left at 5 p.m. They left an hour before dark so they could drive the motorcycle while it's still daylight. He stayed home. He kind of killed time, twiddled his fingers. He thought it was not ideal that they had left him there, but then he came to the realization there was only one set of keys for the duplex, and they took the keys. So he was really stuck. He couldn't go wander around the small town. He was stuck because he would otherwise have to leave the duplex and all the valuables.
And he agreed not to take the key. He's the one who's paying for the rent.
Allan said they just took the key. It surprised him that they took the key.
Okay.
He was a little bit affected by the fact that they would do that. The whole thing would kind of put him off.
Yes.
So he just went with the flow. He's a little annoyed. He stayed home, did stuff on the internet, and he went to bed early.
So he slept in the apartment alone that night.
All by himself.
And didn't leave the apartment
Did not
knowing that he
leave.
doesn't have a spare key for
Yes,
it.
he didn't have a key, yeah.
What happened the next morning?
He wakes up the next morning, and he's got this horrible pain on the inside of his thigh. And, he's a physician, and he looks at his thigh, and he's got this massive wound, and it's radiating out like veins in all different directions, and he feels in his groin pretty intense nerve pain. And so it's like tissue is dying. There's a word, necropathy, or I don't know what you call it, but there's some word for like tissue dying.
Yeah.
And he sees these like black veins from the center of the wound spreading out. He feels the nerve pain in his groin area.
So what's the cause of that? It's like a bite
So
or a virus
so
or
he
something?
looked at it and he said, "Oh, this is really, really serious, and he better get some medical attention immediately." And he thought it was some sort of insect bite.
Oh.
Okay, and so he, heads out of the unit. He locks the door behind him because he doesn't have the key. He figures better to lock it than leave it open. And he heads into town. It's a small provincial town. And he goes to see a physician and get some 2 different types of antibiotics to treat this bite and make sure that he's, not going to go into some sort of shock, because he said it was quite severe. So he spent like 5 hours out of the apartment. And while he was getting the prescription filled, he ran into the grandmother. The grandmother he had met at the airport and been at the promissory party. And
So he ran into her randomly.
Randomly, he just runs into the grandmother. She's like, Alan, why aren't you with my daughter, my granddaughter? Why aren't you with my granddaughter? You should be with my granddaughter. And he explains, oh, well, the whole family had to travel for the funeral and to pay their respects. And the grandmother acts a little bit odd.
So how comes the grandmother didn't know about it if it's a relative?
Yeah. So he didn't get into, he just said the grandmother reacted strangely and quizzed him where she was. And finally she said to him, you need to talk to the aunt.
Here comes the red flag.
Yeah, so at this point, he's been bitten by a really venomous insect. He is locked out of the house he's paying for. He doesn't have his motorcycle available to him. He had to walk into town, right?
Yeah.
And he's met the grandmother, who's a little bit alarmed that the granddaughter's not with him, and says, you need to talk to the aunt.
If you were in Alan's situation that time when the grandmother told you that you should talk to the aunt and you experience all these terrible things to you in just one day, what do you think?
I would have called the aunt immediately and tried to get her on the phone. He didn't.
He didn't?
No, he just parked it in the back of his mind.
He was alarmed.
Well, he had a wound that was very painful, and he was coping with that. He was more concerned about, going back to the unit and seeing if he could get in. So he goes back to the duplex, Chrissy, and he knows he doesn't have the keys, but he figures, well, maybe they're back. He doesn't see the motorcycle. And there's no motorcycle in front of the unit, but he sees a pair of sandals in front of the door. Here in the Philippines, people take their shoes off when they go in, but just one pair of sandals. He didn't really recognize the pair, but he thought, well, maybe someone's been here. So he knocks and knocks and knocks, and nobody comes to the door. And finally, he has his keys from Atlanta in his pocket, and it was a Schlage or some brand of lock that was the same lock that he had keys that were the same brand, like Schlage. And so he takes out his America keys and he starts trying to see if one of them will actually work the Schlage. And sure enough, not the deadbolt, but the doorknob, right? One of his Schlage keys pops the lock. Now, I wasn't there, and he's telling me the story, but I could only imagine he might have been putting a lot of pressure on that key to get it to work. But he says,
break the doorknob.
Maybe. So, but he says it popped the lock, and in he went. And he goes into the duplex, and there's nobody there. It's just like he left it, except he goes into the bedroom, and there's brand new sheets on the bed. Not the sheets he slept in, just brand new set of sheets. Maybe he had purchased them; they hadn't been put out yet.
Yeah.
Clean new sheets on the bed.
Clearly, somebody's been there.
And there's 2 backpacks at the foot of the bed. The 29-year-old Maria's and the 25-year-old brother's. He recognizes the backpacks. But there's nobody there. The windows aren't open. He says, you know, Rob, I shouldn't have done it. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I went to Maria's backpack, and I opened it up, and I went through her stuff.
If that's you, will you open the bag?
Never, because I went through a divorce 13 years ago, and I made that mistake once, and I'll never make that mistake. It just creates a lot of misery and pain and suffering, typically. I just don't believe in violating anybody's privacy.
Then let's
never
see,
again.
Then let's see if your ways is like will be helping you at the end if you are in this story. So what happened when he opened the backpack?
So he finds a bunch of dirty clothing and nothing else, but her cell phone is in the bag.
Oh, her cell phone.
Which is really strange that a Filipino would leave behind her cell phones, because they're sort of like body parts.
Where
you know, cell phones in Filipinas, they sort of been surgically attached. They never leave the hand.
Yeah.
And he says, I shouldn't have done it, Rob. I shouldn't have done it, but I tried to get in her phone, and I wanted to get to her photos, but I couldn't get past the password. I couldn't get into the phone. And I couldn't see any photos, but I was able to see 2 videos. Now, I don't understand.
The most recent.
It could be maybe the last 2 videos,
Yes.
you know, were still available when you just open the camera somehow.
Yeah.
And there were 2 videos. And the first video he saw, he recognized the brothers and the other family members he had met. And everyone is at the beach having like a picnic and a play day at the beach.
Yep.
And everyone's enjoying themselves at the beach. And then, so there's nothing too suspicious there. But
So there's no dead people then. It wasn't really a burial or something. It was
he just saw a party at the beach, an outing at the beach. And he wasn't 100% sure that it had happened that day, but it was highly likely since he was able to get into that video.
Yes.
And there was a second video. And in this video, they're still at the beach, but this time there's a video and she's kissing passionately the 25-year-old brother.
What do you mean? They're videoing them kissing?
Somebody else or a selfie, and it's a video. And
But it's her phone.
Yes, and clearly on this video, he can see Maria giving the 25-year-old brother a passionate kiss. And
It's
he's
not
like,
a red flag anymore.
you know, a burning red flag.
It's a red banner.
It's a red tide.
Red tsunami.
Yeah, red tsunami. So now he's like, okay, he goes into the other backpack, and it's a bunch of dirty clothes, and there's another hit, and the brother's cell phone is in there too. And he's like, you know, okay, I'm going in this cell phone too. And same thing happens. He can't get in the cell phone. He can't see the photos, but he can open up one video. And that's all he gets to see. And in this video, there's another gathering happening. This time it's not at the beach. It's in like a real shanty town, kind of province-y hut, you know, bunkhouse kind of place, you know, maybe a squatting kind of a living arrangement. And there's a real hard drinking, rowdy family of what he called gypsies. And everybody's like drop dead drunk, slurring their words. They look, use his words, like they were criminals.
Really?
Like just a hard
drinking.
They were hard drinking, and you know, like the kind of people that would start fighting with each other for entertainment at any moment. And there was the 25-year-old brother, and he was right in the middle of this family, and it appeared to be a family, and he appeared to be like a family member, and he was hard drinking, and he was right in with these people, and you know, it was the kind of scene where they were going to like maybe push each other down or pick fights with each other. The hard drinking, smoking kind of people.
I think I know what you're thinking.
I think I know what they're thinking too, but stay tuned. So he puts the phone back in the backpack, and he notices there's, in addition to the clothing and the cell phone, there's the ice cream container that was on the karaoke machine.
So the same container that he saw on the top of the karaoke machine
2 nights earlier
is in the bag.
Is in the bag, and he thought that was strange.
If that's you, are you going to open it to see what's inside?
Absolutely.
But you will never see it because you're not going to open the bag.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't. You know what I would have done? I would have climbed out the windows and see where they ran off, maybe. So he opens up the ice cream container and has to immediately shut it because there's a monstrous spider inside the ice cream container.
I can't imagine.
And he's like, what the heck? He goes out to the living room, gets his cell phone, and immediately calls the aunt. And says, what is going on here? You know, I've been stung by this really venomous spider. The brother has it in his backpack. Is this some sort of foul play? The aunt's like, I don't know anything about the spider, but there's something I got to tell you.
What? What do you
about the brother? The 25-year-old brother, the aunt says, not her brother. Well, you already know that, probably, watching. You already suspect.
Do you think it's her boyfriend? But she is an NBSB, no boyfriend since birth.
So the aunt says it's a lesbian. A lesbian. And he's a medical doctor, and he says, you know, in the Philippines, Rob, a lot of boys are feminine, you know, they have skin with no hair.
Yes.
They don't really have beards, and and women sometimes have really small breasts, and he didn't figure it out. Even though he was a doctor, went right over his head, riding on the motorcycle, being right there next to him in bed. He didn't pick up on it. It was a lesbian.
At least, maybe they did not lie about the NBSB, the no boyfriend
Yeah,
sister.
maybe that part's true.
Did.
Right.
But
so he freaks out at this point. He goes, wow, they lied to me from the start. They introduced the lesbian girlfriend as a brother. She withheld her affection in the bedroom. She took his motorcycle. She took the keys. He thinks that they knew exactly what they were doing, and they set that spider after him on purpose.
So do you think it's intentional?
I'm not sure. So he goes, we have to ask what you think. So what we want you to do is, what's the answer? And he goes down to the police station, and he has her called in for questioning. So the police at first say, wow, we can't really do anything because she's not your wife. But he says, hey, these people, you know, they could have killed me. This was really a poisonous spider, or whatever got him, but it's a spider. And so the police station, they call her in for questioning. She gets called in for questioning at the police station, and he gets 5 minutes alone with her. And during those 5 minutes, all she says is, why did you call the police? You shouldn't have done that. Why did you call the police? She doesn't say, oh, there's a logical reason, or let me explain. She doesn't do any explaining.
Oh, so she didn't explain anything.
She doesn't, you know, like they always say in courtrooms, you know, that you got to give the jury an alternative theory. She didn't present an alternative theory, and there's a very easy alternative theory, but she didn't offer it up. She didn't say, no, this is what really happened. She just said, you shouldn't have called into the police. She actually came with a man that he didn't recognize. Maybe it was a family friend or something. But the police hear him in there arguing, and after like 4 minutes, they separate them, and then they question the girl for like an hour by herself, and they finally come out and say, well, there's nothing we could really do. And he says, well, I don't feel safe going back to the duplex. And the police say, well, go stay at this pension house. And so he gets a room at the pension house, and he calls the girl, and he says, bring me my clothing, and bring me my motorcycle, and bring me my phone that I bought for you. And sure enough, later that night, she returns the phone and the motorcycle and everything to the hotel. And the next day, he drove to the Dipolog airport, and he got the heck out of town.
So until now, he still have it. Was 2 years ago.
A year and a half.
Right?
Now, what he said, 2 years. So what he said was it took 6 weeks for the wound to heal in his leg.
Yeah.
And it took 18 months for the marble-sized lump in his thigh to go away.
It could be a deadly spider,
It could be something very deadly.
But until now, he still got a questions in his head. Was it intentional, or was it accidental that he slept with the spider and bit him, and then the other people...
So, Chrissy, last night we had friends over for cards.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are traveling, so it was only 3 other Filipinas and 3 other American expats. And I told this story to you guys last night.
Yep.
And it was really interesting to see everybody's reaction. And I would have guessed that people would have said, oh, he's, you know, overacting, or he's taking it too seriously, that he didn't give her the benefit of the doubt. And it was the exact opposite reaction. You and the other 2 Filipinas, they called guilty.
Yep.
They said she was up to no good. Nobody growing up has ever been bitten this way. It's very uncommon to have that kind of a wound sleeping in, even in these province houses, which have holes in the wooden walls. You don't know anybody that's ever gotten that kind of spider bite.
Yep.
And the fact that the lesbian had put the spider in her backpack was sort of evidence that maybe foul play was at work.
Of course, it's a foul play because at the very beginning they already lied to him.
They already lied, and that's what he thought. He thought because they were lying and trying to get him to outfit the condo. So he thought they were motivated to get rid of him so that they could have the duplex for the remaining 3 weeks, and maybe they would have some privacy to engage in their romantic activities without the prying eyes or without people in the community spreading chica about them, marites, whatever you call it. Yeah. And that's what he thought their motivation was. That's why they were always trying to get him to buy stuff for the duplex. The American expats in the room, they also called BS on the girl. They thought she was up to no good, too. Now, one very good friend of ours, Al, he went home and did research on the different types of spiders. Yeah. And he thought maybe the doctor was not 100% accurate, or maybe he had exaggerated, because he didn't think there was this type of spider here in the Philippines that could cause a wound as egregious as the doctor described. I think that, there's an outside chance there's some truth to what he's saying, but it's too technical for me to really put too much merit in, although he's pretty good when it comes to publishing and fact-finding. But so there you have it. Everybody that we shared, your impression of the case.
Well, if you just gonna examine the connections of the happenings that went on, he got this bite and he found the spider.
Yeah, in her bag. And he found out he was a she.
They lied to him. Yeah. And then there's a lot of things going on. And in my thought that the spider that bit him, if it wasn't intentional, when the Filipinos found out the spider, they will kill it. They will not keep it.
They wouldn't have risked catching it.
Yes, of course. They will not keep it. But they took and hide the evidence.
So I asked myself, if I was on a jury and a good defense attorney, he would present the case as follows. The girls saw the opportunity for a little hanky-panky in private. They put some clean sheets on the bed because they're girls, and they decided to have a little fun, and along came a spider. Itsy-bitsy, giant spider. And they ran for cover. And the lesbian, she went and got the ice cream container, and she... in the corner, she captured the spider, and she said, "Oh, I got to show this to my father. I got to show this to my uncle. I can play pranks on my relatives." And she thought, "I'm going to keep the spider. It's such an amazing spider." And she put it in her backpack, and that's all there is. And then when he knocked on the door, they freaked out. They climbed out the window, and they shut the window from outside, and they ran away with probably barely any clothes on. Yeah, they forgot their phones, which is crazy.
So that's your theory.
I mean, that is if I was on a jury, the shadow of a doubt would exist. But I was really surprised that you and our friends were all guilty. You all thought the girls were guilty of foul play.
Yes.
What do you think at home?
Yeah, because the lies ahead of those things that happened is like the root of them being guilty.
Yeah. So, it's so interesting. We've heard so many stories where men video chat and they think they're in love. Sometimes they start sending money. They come to the Philippines and, there's a cousin or there's a neighbor who's the driver, and it turns out to be the husband or it turns out to be the baby daddy. And, he's actually driving them to the Airbnb while they have sex and waiting outside while they're having. So we've heard all these stories. Yeah. This is a whole other twist where he may have, if he wasn't, if he didn't run off and get antibiotics, it could have been really serious possibly.
Yeah.
So this is just another cautionary tale.
There might be a attempted murder that existed on that story, but it depends on how you're gonna draw your conclusion.
Yeah,
what do you think?
And I think that for the Filipinos out there watching, there's no evidence that points to the fact that this was as he saw it. There could be a very innocent explanation. Now, was she devious? Was she defrauding him? Was she taking advantage of him
Yes.
by having her lesbian girlfriend sleep next to introduce?
Yes.
Yes. That wasn't right. But was she committing a serious crime? Well, you're the jury. Comment below. And what could he have done differently?
Yeah, and I have a tip.
Yeah.
If you will be talking to a Filipina and she will say she is an NBSB or no boyfriend since birth, ask her, how about girlfriend?
Yeah, maybe. Well, Chrissy, for private consultation, personalized consultation, Chrissy and I can help. Email us at
flymetothephilippines@gmail.com. And also, if you want to share your story for the next Expat Diary.
This is Expat Diaries episode 3. If you've got a story and you'd like to share it, go ahead and contact us at flymetothephilippines@gmail.com. And we'll have a telephone interview to get all the details and all the juicy tidbits. And maybe we can help some other expats out there avoid the Black Widow and not become the Spider-Man like Dr. Allan from Georgia. Thanks again. Until next time.
From Fly Me to the Philippines, see you on our next story.